Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas.
An amended special session has been held on Thursday, June 29th, 2017 at 5:00 p.m. in the 5th floor conference room for a demonstration on the new election equipment. Immediately following is a presentation from Public Works on a city center construction project that begins next week. Roll call. McKiernan.
Here.
Mugia. Johnson.
Here.
Kane.
Here.
Markley. Here. Walters.
Here.
Philbrook.
Here.
Bynum.
Here.
Walker.
Here.
Townsend.
Here.
Holland.
Here. All right, we're going to learn about voting machines. Mr. Bach, do you have any introduction?
Thank you, Mayor. Certainly. Tonight we're going to have Mr. Newby from the election office come over, and he's going to show us a little bit about our $1.2 million investment into some new equipment that we have coming online this year for the new election. So with that, I will just introduce Mr. Newby to come forward and go through the presentation.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure to be here, and this is great. The rollout of this equipment here in Wyandotte County, I think, will impress the voters. And I have to thank these commissioners, this UG commission, for authorizing the funds that bought this. It is a definite, significant improvement.
We're having microphone issues, sir. Do you have a microphone?
Oh, I got to press the button. Shall I start over?
Sure. But we want the same level of enthusiasm.
Thank you for detecting this. I don't think it's on yet. Yeah, I will.
There you go. Now you're ready.
Mayor, commissioners.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for, obviously you had to be here, but giving us the opportunity to demonstrate this equipment to you. It is a substantial investment, as the mayor said, and I want to personally thank each and every one of you for the support that you have given to the Wyandotte County Election Office in making sure that we have this equipment, but also the support that you've given to voters in Wyandotte County. This is a substantial change, and I think the voters will really appreciate what you've done, what we've done. The machines consist of a ballot box, which isn't all that much different than the ballot box we used to have, except that the scanner that sits on top of that ballot box is permanently affixed to it, and it has different features and much greater and better security than the previous one did. This is the touch screen. Yesterday morning when I was giving the presentation, we didn't pull down these privacy panels because we wanted everybody to have the opportunity to see it. But the concern was expressed that will a voter be able to vote the touchscreen in privacy, and the answer is yes. The beauty of the features of these machines is when you vote a regular ballot, you mark it and it goes into that scanner. When you vote on this touchscreen, you're not actually voting, you're marking a ballot. It's like having a $500 pencil. You actually mark your ballot on, and it prints on a piece of paper. That gives the voter the opportunity not only to review their vote on the screen, but also review it when their card prints out. And if they're satisfied that their card is what they intended, they then take that card over and insert it in the ballot box, and that's how their vote gets tabulated. So the features of these machines are great. I'm going to introduce Angie Friesen and Chris Herland. They are representatives of the manufacturer of this equipment, and it's called Election Systems and Software. We call it ES&S for short. They're very knowledgeable, so if you have any questions, I'm sure they can answer them. Certainly, I'll try and answer any questions that you have. Angie, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Again, my name is Angie from ES&S. Our manufacturer is in Omaha, Nebraska, so we're a short drive north of you. I'm going to show you what Commissioner just described. And I want to say that there's a lot of benefits that the public won't see or you necessarily won't see that helps the election headquarters, his election headquarters, become more efficient and helps with speed and security. I'm not going to take 2 hours to explain all those to you today, so what I'm going to show you is from the voter's perspective. So when the voter walks into the poll booth, you're going to see now the very simple process from what they see. Okay, so as Bruce described, or Commissioner described, if you vote on paper, as a lot of your voters are used to doing, it's not going to change much. So they're going to check in on their electronic poll book. They're going to get their particular ballot style issued to them. The voter will take the ballot, go to a private voting booth, and they'll mark their paper ballot. When they finish marking, oh, here's a marked one. They obviously, because it's paper, they have a chance to review their selections, and then they insert it into what we call the DS200, but it is, in Wyandotte County, we call it a scanner, just to keep it simple. I know you probably can't see on that side, but when I inserted my ballot, there was an American flag that says, "Thank you, your vote has been counted." It's kind of nice to have that extra message. We have a public count that will go up 1, so then they can see that their vote has been counted and the machine did read the ballot. Very simple process on the paper side. The touchscreen, our company calls it the Express Vote. We will refer to it as a touchscreen. Voter checks in, poll book in the poll site. They will receive a blank ballot. There's going to be a supervising judge that will pull up the voter's particular ballot style on the screen for them. So all the ballot styles can fit on one entire machine. So the voter will only see their ballot, their particular ballot style pulled up on the screen. I'm going to lift these privacy screens up so that you can kind of see what I'm doing. But obviously, in a voting environment, these will stay down the whole time. They clip in there pretty good, but that'll work for now. So the supervising judge in the poll place will insert the ballot, kind of activates the session. Supervising judge has a ticket that they will scan to bring up the ballot style. They will walk away, and then the voter has their ballot. So then they can navigate through the voting session on the touch screen. It is a very, I'm going to push this over just a little bit. It's a very simple process. We're all getting used to the iPad Touch, and that's pretty much similar to what you'll see here. I make my selections. Does not allow you to overvote. It will change your vote for you. If you have a contest where it's a vote for 2, it will make you deselect the one you do not want and then choose the one that you do want. So I'm going to just kind of quickly show you how quick that you can navigate through. Come to a summary screen so I can review my choices on the screen. If everything looks good, you'll have green checks through the entire process, or entire screen. I have an exclamation point here. I don't know if you can see that from there, but it's kind of letting me know you had 2 choices, you only chose 1, so you can go back and make another selection if you choose. So I'm going to touch that contest, make another selection, hit next, brings me right back to my summary screen. A couple other things on here. On the touchscreen, you have a contrast. You have a zoom as well. It is federally certified as an ADA voting device. However, we call it a universal voting device, so all voters can use the touchscreen. So again, once you see your selections on the screen, everything looks good, you hit next. It says, are you sure you want to print your card? I'm going to hit print card. It's going to print my card, and what it's going to show is your selections only. That's how it can all fit on this small ballot. Thank you, Commissioner. Then the voter now reviewed their choices on the screen, and then they have another chance to review it on the paper ballot as well. Then they walk over to the tabulator, because again, as Bruce described, this just marked the ballot for the voter so that they had another chance to review. I inserted in the slot. Thank you, your vote has been counted. Public count went up 1 increment. Again, very simple. There's a lot more that goes into work, obviously, behind the scenes at election headquarters and then at the end of the night. But this is what the voter will see when they go into the poll site.
Are there any questions?
Commissioner Kane?
Thank you, Mayor. Will this speed up the time for when we count them? It seems like it takes an hour or so before the results start coming in. Will this help speed that up or no?
The answer to the question is no, it will not speed up the Nothing is online.
We're not on, sir.
There. Nothing's online. So what happens when the polls close, the election workers have a substantial number of things that they must complete before they bring things back to the election office. And there's a specific set of equipment that that supervising judge has to bring back, one of which is in this case, it's going to be a little thumb drive that they take out of that machine that brings back the election results. We then have to upload those results. And what we have always had to deal with is the fact that it is usually at least 7:30 before any of the polling places start to come back. And if you've got polling places far west, it takes them, it's a 20, 25 minute, maybe 30-minute drive to get to us. If they close down, if they're actually able to get away from their polling place as early as 7:30, it can very often be after 8 o'clock before they get to our office. And then there's a certain amount of time that we have to go through, that we have to check in the property and account for everything, and then we upload the results. And we upload, usually the first thing I try to upload on election night are the results from advance voting. Again, that one of the things that people don't commonly understand is just because the polls close at 7 o'clock doesn't mean that anything has been tabulated. We have, each one of the polling places has to press the right buttons to be able to cause that machine to tabulate the votes for that polling place, which then they have to read to any poll agents present. And once that's completed, then they can start breaking down the equipment, folding up the voting booths, securing these machines. So it can take half an hour, 45 minutes. We've had some supervising judges that inexplicably take an hour. But we also had situations where a polling place is supposed to close at 7 o'clock, but there are voters in line. And the law requires that we take care of those voters in line before we actually close. So that's usually what causes a delay on election night in terms of getting the results out. Now, I've always told my staff that I endeavor to have final results before the 10 o'clock news.
Some organizations post them as they come in. So as you get 5 polling places, they post that online, and then they get another 5 polling places and they post that. So you get results coming in throughout the evening. It seems that typically our office just waits till the end and posts it all at once. Do you?
No, we don't. We haven't done that for quite some time, because our procedure is they get posted to our website, but the first report that we post on our website is all of advance. And then I have been doing the first third of all the polling places that report in. There's 30 polling places. When 10 have reported in, then I do the second update. When 20 have checked in, then I do the third update, and when all 30 of them have checked in, that's when I do the final result for the night.
Okay, great.
So there are progress reports.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Markley?
So what if someone wanted to write in a candidate? Can they do that on this system?
Yes, you can. On a regular paper ballot, the write-ins obviously can be written on the paper ballot. On this, do you want to show them? Because it's...
Absolutely.
I'll hold this for you.
When you have your candidates listed, and then you have a space you can click, check the write-in section. And once you do that, it's going to pull up a keyboard. So you can type your write-in here. So I will show you, and I'll show you what it looks like too once it's printed. If you were to undervote, which you'll see on this example, it'll say no selection made. So it's very clear if you don't make all your selections. You'll see your choices, and then you kind of see how it says write in, has a little arrow. Do you want to pass them on? Okay.
What if I come in and I don't want to,
Bold, that's right.
I'm not computer savvy. Are you going to be able to give me just a paper ballot?
Yes.
Okay.
Primary method of voting in Wyandotte County is and shall remain the paper ballot. This just gives us the opportunity that if the voter wants to cast a ballot on the touchscreen, that we now have a paper ballot that goes into the scanner.
Okay.
So everything is backed up by paper. But if you want to vote a regular ballot, you'll be able to get it.
Okay.
Commissioners Bynum and then Johnson and Townsend.
Thank you. I just was curious, prior to the primary, will you be holding a mock election with your staff or some of your volunteers to run through a number of votes and test everything out and test all your processes?
That's largely, there's a lot of it that's already been done.
Okay.
Every one of these machines has been tested, and every one of those has been tested. There will be a public test required by law 1 week before the election. But the public test for us is a formality because by then we've probably tested each of the pieces of equipment at least 6 times.
You know, I'm just thinking whenever we have something new, there's always one thing we didn't think about, and it happens to be election day. And I just wondered about, you know, bringing in 10 or 15 volunteers and casting 500 or 600 votes and just running through the process.
We've been doing election worker training all this week, and I will have another election worker training in the last week of July to make sure that the people that are going to be the monitors or the attendants to these machines know exactly what they're doing.
And if I may say something, before he made a decision, we had to come in and do kind of what you're saying. We had to do a mock election and prove the system and go through a handful of scenarios. So before he even would move forward with the purchase. So,
And we've already done a couple of not sample elections, mock elections, just to make sure that the equipment works and what we understood it. All that was done during the RFP process as well. We made sure that we chose the correct one for our county's needs.
Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. It seems to me with the electronic voting system, there's an extra step added now than as opposed to what it was, because now it still generates a paper copy that has to be inserted. That's a little extra than what it was in the past. Is that correct?
That's an
extra step.
That's an extra step in a sense because the voter now has a piece of paper that they have to take to the ballot box.
Okay.
But previously, the old touch screens that we had, you would actually cast your ballot on that touch screen. But the concern of most voters was, how do I know the machine recorded my real votes?
Okay.
With this machine, they can be dead certain that it has recorded their vote exactly the way they intended to vote. And then they take it to the ballot box and feed it in. If they've made a mistake, that ballot gets marked as spoiled, and they get a new clean ballot and start over. And they're allowed by law to do that up to 3 times to get their ballot straight. Usually that is more than sufficient.
Just as long as nobody complains of voter fraud, I'm okay with it. So.
All right. Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. If you want to use the touchscreen ballot, I'm going back to something that Ms. Angie said. I want to make sure I understand. Say that you elect, for whatever reason, not to make a selection in a particular category. Will that be kicked out saying you have not completed your ballot?
No.
Okay.
It will say no selection made.
Okay.
They have to, by law, we have to give the ability to allow a voter to cast a blank ballot if they choose.
Okay.
So each list would just say no selection. So they would have time to review it, and then again, if they want to go back and make a selection, they can do that. But
all right, thank you.
yeah, it won't stop the process.
Commissioner Walker and then Markley.
I think you cleared it up. When you get the piece of paper from the touch screen and you put it in there, you don't leave with a piece of paper that shows who you voted for, do you?
You absolutely do not. In fact, it's illegal to remove a ballot, whether it's the electronic generated one or one you filled out by hand. It's illegal to remove that from the polling place.
Well, I just meant you don't get any kind of proof of voting or receipt or
The only thing a voter really gets is an I voted sticker.
Okay, well,
That's
I
good.
wanted to make sure.
They don't
I didn't want
get a
I
copy
didn't
of
want a
their
piece of
ballot.
paper that I just throw in my car and then somebody looks in my car and they can see how I voted.
Right, and they wouldn't, because you don't take it with you.
Okay?
Commissioner Markley.
Okay, 2 questions. One, I like the little flag that tells you you voted. What happens if something goes wrong and the little flag doesn't come up?
Well, there are few things there's few troubleshooting things that can happen in the poll site. You can have a ballot jam that can be easily cleared. As far as that flag not showing up, the system will not allow it to get to that point for there to be a mistake in the end. It's going to tell the voter ahead of time. For example, if a voter overvotes, it's going to tell them, you've overvoted, you chose too many candidates in this contest, you're allowed 1, you chose 2. So that's going to make them go back and correct their ballot before it even gets to the final. So there really isn't, if there's a machine problem, then that's a whole nother thing that we equipped commissioner's team with to go and troubleshoot. But this is our 5th generation tabulator. We've learned a lot from the past. Simple things like widening the ballot feed path so there's less ballot jams. We've put a laundry list of things and enhancements that help decrease any issues or trouble jams at the device. So.
And if I can add, the counties, Shawnee County has used this, Sedgwick County has used this, and the feedback that I got from those 2 election commissioners is they kind of expected phone calls on election day of problems, because that's what we all got when we were using the old equipment. Dead silence. No problems at all.
Good.
And I'm not going to be so foolish as to claim that there will be nothing go wrong, but we usually have the ability to correct whatever goes wrong within 10 or 15 minutes.
Awesome. And then, go ahead.
Sorry. We deployed 3,500 units in Manhattan, New York, and we had a 1% failure rate. And that was 4 years ago, so we've made it better since then.
Cool. And then my last question, and there may not be an answer to this, but I'm just curious. Have you done any statistical analysis to see if using the touchscreen means more people are voting in more categories? I just wonder if when you're writing it, you're maybe more apt to skip ones where you're not sure who to vote for, but then when the screen pops up and tells you didn't make a selection, maybe you feel a little sort of pressure to pick something. So I'm just curious if there was any studies on that.
Yeah, interesting question, actually. We have audit logs on everything, on all of our equipment. Every button that's pushed, it's audited. We've had all this data for years and we didn't do anything with it, but we just actually did create a program that can actually analyze this data. We just developed it, but it's there and we would love to do something with it. We just kind of started talking to jurisdictions about it. So that's something that we probably will get out and hopefully use to better educate our jurisdictions on what they vote on, how much, what are the times they vote, what's the ages that vote at what time. There's so much data, we just have to do something with it. So it is all captured.
Mr.
The
Pop.
other major advantage to our election workers with this equipment is previously, and we're talking, the average election worker is 72 years old. I have many that are older than that. The previous equipment they had to lug around. They had to load them in their car. They had to take them home. They had to get them out of their car at night because they weren't allowed to leave the machines outside in the cold. It didn't matter whether it was summer or winter.
Or the heat.
They had to bring it into their home. And then the next morning, they have to be at their polling place at 6, so that meant they had to load their car early in the morning and drive all the way to the polling place and then still set all this stuff up. So they don't have to lug any of this because this will all be delivered by a mover. And it'll be in the polling place the day before the election. And it all locks up, so it's secure while sitting there. And quite frankly, they can't, unless you've got the right stuff and the keys, you can't start it without that.
Mr. Bach, and then Commissioner McKiernan.
Mr. Newby, would you kind of go over your deployment to the 30 different polling places of the equipment that you'll have on each site, or how many machines you'll have in each site?
For this primary election, my intent was to send one of these, because one of these is really all that's necessary, because that's all we ever had of these. For this primary election, the anticipated low turnout, I'm going to put one of these at every polling place. The primary method of voting, as I said earlier, is the paper ballot. And so every voter will get the opportunity to vote a paper ballot. In my training of election workers, I've told them that this machine, at this first run, because I want to see how it goes, this first run is going to be exclusively used by people who have disabilities, who choose to use it. The other rule that I've applied is that I don't want big long lines to this, because obviously you can have 50 people voting a paper ballot. This machine can only get used one at a time. So I've told them they can use this machine as long as there's not more than 3 people in line. The problem we had last fall in the 2016 election at Rainbow Mennonite Church, which was a polling place, it stayed open until roughly 8:30, and that's because they had a line of people stacked up waiting to vote the old touchscreen, and that's preventable. Vote a paper ballot.
Yeah. Ultimately, though, how many of those machines could you deploy? Will you have the ability to deploy more than one at the other facilities from what you purchased?
Absolutely, and I intend to do that for the general election.
Okay. Thanks.
We have customarily had more of the touchscreens at the polling places. Part of it is when the mover moves these, there's a way that it has to be configured. I just want to make sure that stuff going out and coming back doesn't get damaged. It's a way it's like having a soft opening. It's a way to get some experience with the machines so we don't damage a bunch of equipment from the get-go.
Very good.
Commissioner McKiernan?
You said all the data from the scanner gets written onto a USB drive that then gets taken back to your office?
Yes.
Where it's uploaded then onto the master computer. What's the failure rate of USB drives? And I assume that that machine, that scanner stays in the polling place and the data is not purged until you've confirmed that it has been uploaded?
There is a permanent memory stick in this that never leaves it. What the supervising judge brings it back to us is a memory stick that is accessible, but you're talking about going behind locks to get to it. You have to have the right keys to get to it.
Yeah.
Well, there's a failure rate of
yeah.
electronic devices. So what's the failure rate and what is your hedge against failure?
Right. I don't know our failure rate. I can find out, but what I can tell you is that these USB drives are military grade. They're not. You can't just go get them at Walmart or order them online. It's definitely a higher grade of a USB stick. I'm sure there's failures. I don't know the exact rate, but if there are, it can be recovered. As Commissioner said, there is always another additional USB drive locked in the back door at all times. So if you do have a failure with the stick up front, you have your additional stick that you can pull. And if that one were to fail, you always have the paper. You can reburn a stick for that particular poll site and rerun the ballots through worst case scenario.
And one of the things we traditionally use is these print a zeros tape in the morning. You probably remember that from when we've done canvass. It also prints a final results tape. So the other equipment that we had, the failure rate was higher, but when we get the equipment back, we'd had that tape to compare the results, what the actual results were, and then when we ran the ballots through a new machine, we compared them and made sure that the results were exactly the same, and then that's what got uploaded.
Commissioner Philbrook?
Well, I want to thank you for going to a school on Wichita and some of the other locations. Were we able to get a cost savings at all from a mass buying, utilizing the other locations as well?
We absolutely were. I'll let you address that.
Yeah, the top 4 counties in Kansas got together and released an RFP. And how they constructed it was there were different tiers of pricing. So if there were so many units sold, you get this tier pricing, first tier pricing, and then once you hit the 4th tier, then there was a very aggressive pricing that the entire state was able to utilize. And so they definitely got, to be honest, probably the best pricing in the nation. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that live TV in front of all of you, but yes, you got an incredible deal.
Well, I was fortunate I was at the meeting when they were out in the hallway talking about this. And I said, oh, this sounds really interesting. And I think they were in the middle of having the conversation with you.
Oh, okay.
about that.
Yeah.
And I was pretty excited about that, saving millions of dollars, you know, across the state. So thank you very much for allowing them to do that, and thank you for being involved.
When I came up with the original pricing, the pricing was over $2 million. So we saved a substantial amount of money.
Well done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It was, the final price was 1.2, is that right?
I think it was closer to 1.4.
Yeah, it's under 1.2.
No.
It was like $1,390,000.
Okay, 1.4, so $600,000, that's substantial?
Mhm.
That's great. And how, in our country right now, we're very concerned that the Russians not hack into our voting. What's the security measures for this electronic equipment?
Do you want me? Oh.
One of the big security measures is these are never connected to the internet. Never. So it makes it a little difficult to hack a machine that never gets connected to the internet. The only systems that anybody has been successful in hacking, and you've probably read the reports in the newspaper, but there is one very small vendor whose equipment is not near as robust as this, and the only thing they were able to do with that vendor is to hack the voter registration system. They never touched the machine.
Okay.
Do you want to?
Yeah, I think that's perception is reality, as we all understand, and that's what the public hears. You hear about hacking, and they don't understand that there is nothing online, of course. So that's your security right there. Beyond that, there's so many processes during testing before and after. A lot of people involved. The media, again, is in a locked door. The media is encrypted. There's a key that the software encrypts that no human can even decrypt. So there's multiple steps of security, and there's no way to get into it.
And we've talked about the testing that goes on before, and there's a mandatory public test. We also do another test immediately after the election, usually a week or so after. It will be after the Board of Canvassers. We do a post-test to make sure that the machines that were used on Election Day did exactly what they were supposed to. We look for the same results.
That's great. I think that's an important voter. I mean, I think our voters should have every confidence. And I do remember there was a recount 2 years ago that came out exactly to the vote the same as it was originally counted.
Yes.
So I think there's a high, we should have high confidence in the vote accuracy of our voting. All right.
Machine count is definitely more accurate than any human being involved in the counting process, as we all know.
All right, any further questions? I don't see any. Thank you very much. And
Thank you.
enjoy your summer,
Thanks to
Mr.
all of
Newby.
you for allowing us to do this presentation.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Do we need to move this stuff out of the way?
Yes, please. All right, Mr. Bach, I'll turn this over to you.
All right, now we'd like to do a short presentation on a public works project that's coming up. Periodically, we pick a few of these to come up with. This one in particular because it's a city center project. It's going to be going on right out in front of City Hall. So as you all see it, as you come into this building, and thought it'd be good for you to get an understanding of what was going to happen. It'll be happening soon, and what will all be taking place as part of it. So it's an approved project that construction is ready to begin. So I will recognize Brent Thompson, that's our Public Works Department, to go through this.
Thank you, Doug. Mayor and Commissioners, appreciate the opportunity tonight. As Doug was saying, we're going to be seeing this pretty quick, starting next week. It's our Center City 7th Street project that starts from Tromie and runs to Washington Boulevard. And I guess we got to turn it on. I did. I don't know. That's why I'm not in IT. Okay, so a little bit of background on this before we get into it. In 2007, we went ahead and had a consultant do a traffic assessment of the area that we identified as the center city. And as you can see, the boundary of that is Washington on the north and all the way to Orville to the south, 5th Street on the east, and all the way to 11th Street on the west. And what we had them do was to look at our existing traffic signals and pedestrian areas and so forth, basically looking at condition, age, warrant analysis, basically the pedestrian movements and so forth along that with the traffic, vehicles, and transit. And so what we've done since then, that study, we've done Washington Avenue with some traffic signal improvements. We did 7th and Orville, and from my understanding, this was 2010 or maybe before my time for sure. And I think that this area might have been a two-way stop, and they put in a new traffic signal from what I understand. We did 11th and State, the pedestrian upgrades, and phase 1 of our 7th Street, which was Ann and Armstrong, which I'm sure several of you have seen with the new pedestrian ADA ramps along with the black-coated traffic signals. This particular project will be what we call phase 2 and 3. They're going to they will run together. The phase 2 is going to be traffic signal and road improvements, and the resurfacing portion is the Clink project. And I'll get into the Clink project and explain what that stands for in a minute. So to give you an idea, right here we've done all the traffic signals along on the west, and then basically this is the boundary that we had discussed. And all the red dots are still what we have to do. The 2 green are what we did with Ann and Armstrong, with City Hall being right here. We'll be touching Barnett, and Barnett will be getting the black-coated traffic signal. And then we will be doing the one at State Avenue, and that's going to get the standard traffic signal. These 2 are what would be done on the Minnesota project, 7th and 8th Street already. So the Clink project is basically a Kansas Department of Transportation Connecting Links resurfacing program. And it's available statewide. And what that basically is anything under 10,000 population, they will pay up to 75%. Anything over 50%, they'll pay over 10,000, they'll pay 50%, which that would be us. So to give you an idea of what those connecting links are, as you can see, we are 7th Street all the way up. So basically 7th Street is still in the jurisdiction of KDOT, but we maintain it the same way with K32 from 18th Street to 55th Street and Leavenworth Road all the way across. This program is there for us to apply for to get funds to be able to do maintenance on the road. So a little funding history. Phase 1, we budgeted $850,000, and the actual cost came in at $785,000. Same thing for phase 2. We had 1.2 and just a little over $1 million. This particular one, we had budgeted $170,000 and anticipated $200,000 for the Clink project. As you can see, we came under budget, so our portion of that is roughly a little over $120,000. For the project scope, we're basically going to be getting new curbs all the way down. So what's going to happen is this first phase, they're going to come through and they're going to redo those curbs first. Okay, we're going to get those all taken care of so the resurfacing project can come in behind them and start doing their work while stuff is being, the construction's going on the sidewalks and the ADA ramps and the traffic signals and so forth. So again, 7th and Barnett will get the powder coated, and then the State Avenue will be the standard. We're doing the fiber optic conduit as well through here for future connectivity. And we're going to be looking at the drainage improvement for Washington. There's some areas there we're going to be taking care of. So to give you some idea of what it's going to look like, as you can see on the left right now, that's what our current condition is. On the right, we're going to have new curb along with the sidewalk. So just to kind of give you an idea, we don't have anything to go off, no renderings, so forth. But again, we have the curb and sidewalk through here that's broken up. Now I will say that in this project, some of the sidewalk will remain. There's going to be panels that are popped out and replaced just for budgetary reasons, but those panels are in good shape and have been identified. Here we have the ADA ramp, as you can see on the left, which is, I believe is 7th in Nebraska. It doesn't meet the current standard. We'll be putting in the detectable ramps there. Again, here's a typical non-conforming ADA ramp now, and this is what we'll be doing with it throughout the project. So this particular one will be doing signal upgrades. As you can see, this pedestrian area will be reworked. This is the existing condition of the pedestrian countdown. We're going to be doing the new countdown system here, which will be this one right here. It is a countdown system. It's not going to be a button push system, where you're able to make the change, because the 7th Street traffic lights are all kind of coordinated together. If you've ever been sitting there and you can see one turn green, then they just all kind of follow suit. So that we won't have that operation where you push the button. Traffic signal, again, this is going to be where we have the existing now. We'll be going to the powder coated with the LED, and there's going to be some LED upgrades on light poles as well along 7th Street. So the schedule for this, the roadway project begins next week. It's a 180-day project. The resurfacing, like I say, will come in right after the curbs are put in, and it has a 45-day calendar construction period as well. So, is there any questions?
Will all the traffic lights no longer be timed? You said that 7th Street will be coordinated. Well, are we adding fiber to all of these so they could use cameras?
Well, the way from my understanding now is that with the pedestrian, it's just going to be the countdown system, and because the lights are on a timing as they go. So,
but I mean, like, to identify where a car is, because often in all these old signals, you stop and it's just on a timer,
right?
And your car's sitting there, and the light doesn't know you're the only one within a 4-block radius. But by golly, it's going to wait another minute before it clicks over to green.
Right. So what I can say is that these traffic signals will fit with what we have out there now, and I'm not sure exactly which system that is, if it is a camera system or if it's just what you're referring to.
Will there be fiber run to each of these intersections? Because I understand one of the issues with timing lights is you have to have fiber to every pole.
That I'd have to look into. I know that we're putting the fiber conduit through there for just the future connectivity, but I'm thinking that that's not for that purpose.
Okay. Any other questions for this? All right. Thank you for updating us. We will be driving around this, appreciating the progress.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We are now adjourned until 7 o'clock. We'll be downstairs in the commission chambers.